Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and thank you for joining us here on this Thursday edition, the 12th day of April, 2012. And as you can hear, my voice is a little bit raspy today, but I think it'll, like an old car's engine, after it runs for a while, it should stop sputtering and clanking and whiz-banging. We have reporters. In fact, guys, we pulled me yesterday's news, Paul Watson's article on the death, the suspicious death of the gentleman who had a small farm that the city designated as a green space and decided to take. And so they kept bringing charges forward for a very long period of time against him. He kept winning in court, so the house just blew up, and with him in it, when the police outside. And of course, somebody also months before had poisoned his chickens, and it made the city even madder because it was out in a rural area. It's a suburb of Atlanta. They're in Georgia. They're in Roswell, Georgia. Others were getting into having backyard chickens. And you don't do that in America. Pittsburgh is moving to ban garage sales. And, of course, the feds have $15 million fines now if you sell anything that was ever recalled, even though you don't know that. You're supposed to know that. If you sell anything that was ever recalled, $15 million fine. That's Associated Press. If you think I'm joking, just search that term. I've got more attacks on Amish and more attacks on people selling produce on the side of the road. You're not going to do that. Pretty soon they won't even let a gentleman, I guess, in South Austin sell bonsai trees on the side of the road. You don't do that in land of the free, home of the brave. You pay your money to a big box store with Chinese slave goods, with factories that move to China because of tax incentives. And if you don't like it, you can go to jail in land of the free, home of the brave. I don't know why my voice is gone today, but it's one thing when my voice is raspy, but it's another thing entirely when it's hard to talk. So hopefully my afterburners will kick in here, and I don't feel bad. It's just laborious to talk. That's coming up. I'm going to have our reporters, Darren McBreen and Marcos Morales, reporting from Roswell, Georgia, home of Ted Turner and the Georgia Guidestones nearby. Their testament to genocidal hatred of humanity. They're going to be joining us in the third hour, which actually distracts them and away from their work. They're investigating the suspicious death. You know, they announced in about 5 minutes they think he blew himself up in the house. When they do that, we have to automatically not believe known congenital liars that are government. And, you know, that's my issue with the police. A lot of police I know are patriotic, smart men and women and are good people and got into it for the right reasons. But they work for and serve a corrupt political elite and carry out unconstitutional stuff all the time. And yes, I will later in the hour break down Austin's own Carmageddon. You're like, well, I don't live in Austin, why do I care? This type of stuff is going on everywhere. That police officer got killed last week by a Xanax head. They shut down both sides of the major highways and paralyzed the city for 5 hours. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. We are live. Thank you for joining us. It is the 12th day of April, 2012 on this Thursday worldwide broadcast, and we're going to be here for the next 3 hours. We're going to have our reporters, Marcos Morales and Darren McBreen, joining us from a suburb of Atlanta, Roswell, Georgia, where a man locked in a 6-year battle with the city that was telling him he couldn't have his farm that they had annexed into the city, ended up dying. when the police began to raid his home, and they're telling us that the gentleman blew himself up. So we've got reporters there talking to the locals and investigating, and they'll be joining us coming up in the third hour of the broadcast today. Headline at Infowars.com, state seizes property under green zoning laws. They designated the land. They said they were going to get it. And they said, you can't have chickens. And he went to court and beat them. He'd had chickens for years. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And, of course, they've got the property now. Another citizen conquered. Agenda 21 eco-fascism bears its teeth. And it's broken down in that article. We'll cover that for about 30 minutes of the third hour today. Meanwhile, there's more hysteria. NBC New York reports suspicious package forces evacuation of World Financial Center Tower. The wicked flee when none pursue. Yesterday, we were reporting that, and so was Fox News and others, that there was leaks coming out that, no, they weren't going to charge George Zimmerman, the Trayvon Martin slaying. And then before the show was even over, they came out and said they were charging him with second-degree murder, which has shocked prosecutors across the country. They said, bare minimum, you might get a conviction with manslaughter, which is basically accidental. But second-degree murder is a big deal. I guess all there is after that is premeditated capital murder, which is the death penalty. Now, suddenly, Trayvon Martin's mother has come out and said that she thinks that it was an accident, and the leader of the new Black Panther Party, we're going to play this later, has broken down crying and freaking out. Turns out she's got a long history of run-ins with the police. She's now apologizing, saying she never incited anyone to violence, and then cries, it's about the worst performance I've ever seen. And I guess she's worried now about being arrested for racketeering, because they call on people to organize to murder whites and to, quote, burn down Florida. I mean, that's organizing criminal attacks. That is the essence of organized crime. And you notice she hasn't gotten in trouble, but I think the way she's crying and freaking out now and then saying, and by the way, I never incited anybody. I guess her lawyer told her that. She's getting the word that she's going to get some handcuffs slapped on her, and she needs to. I mean, where is the grand jury? Where is the prosecutor calling for this Tampa, Florida woman to be arrested? I mean, anybody else. If this wasn't being run out of the White House and NBC hadn't been caught editing tapes so that they can get a race war going, and if the White House wasn't, hyping this up, and if the Attorney General wasn't meeting with Al Sharpton, who is a clown-like race agitator, she would be arrested very, very quickly. And, of course, the feds also in Orlando, on record, Orlando Sentinel, have white supremacist groups that are admittedly Fed-run, not Fed-infiltrated, Fed-run, trying to stir up a thing as well. And they've called for things not quite as extreme, but close. They're not getting in any trouble. But every time I have national media here, every time, they say, aren't you calling for violence? Aren't you worried you're going to cause violence? When I'm calling for non-violence and awakening to the fact that we're going into a tyranny. Doesn't matter who it is. Nightline, the list goes on and on. MSNBC, all of them. They always say, what about violence? Meanwhile, NBC is editing tapes together trying to get a race war going. The idea is, oh, there's violence in America. We got to shut down everybody's free speech. But they want to stir it up first so they have the pretext to shut down the population speech. And that's exactly what this system's doing. There's new numbers I'll get to later if I have time. But broadcast TV and cable viewing across the board is just plummeting. Primetime shows are plummeting. People are just deserting the dinosaur media. And so the system is going to respond with the new treaties and new laws and new cybersecurity legislation that, in their own words, ends privacy, ends due process, and allows them to shut down anybody anytime they want outside of law. And that's the big issue here that has to be discussed. The larger issue that we need to understand here is that when I get up here and criticize police for engaging in unconstitutional activity, you are being twisted by the social engineers to slowly destroy the common law, the common sense, the Bill of Rights, due process. And the entire society is being criminalized and being inducted into the criminal justice system that today is a social engineering college for criminals. That's how the system plans to fully erase our rights and liberties, is just set up administrative law, train bureaucrats and armed bureaucrats that they can do whatever they want administratively, and then get everybody into the system and say you don't have rights. No fly list. IRS wants it where you can't have a job, travel, if you aren't in good stead with them, and they're a collection agency for the private Federal Reserve and want to destroy the economy in their own policy reports. They want to create a post-industrial society. That's what's going on here. And so when they try to set it out there in front of the public like you're either for the police and do everything they say and do and everything the media promotes through them and everything that the government that commands them says, or you hate police. And that's not the case. But in every case in history, in every culture, tyranny comes to your door in a uniform. The uniform is always the instrument of your enslavement. And it's that case in all histories, in all cultures, in all systems. Many cultures, in fact, the more free, the less police. Many cultures outlawed police, outlawed military in the country. Our system outlawed military inside the United States. That's the American system, because they knew it would be used against us by corrupt individuals that got control. In Germany, the military was pretty much outlawed from operating domestically, but Hitler got rid of that. You know, before Julius Caesar came along, you could not have the military inside of Italy. What is Italy today? Rome was a city-state, and its main province and its genetic homeland was what is Italy today. But the city on the hills there was the city-state of Rome. And you did not bring the military in to central and southern Italy. You could have them up in the north, but that was it to guard the border. So see, these are common sense things. And you say, our police are being militarized, they're violating our rights more and more. We're being trained that we basically can't have any rights or freedoms, and that it's all in our own interest. And then the government's caught engaged in all this corruption and all this abuse and all these dangerous things that are happening. We need to rein government back in. That's the American system. And then we get rebuked by the dinosaur media and the police spokesman and others. And now our local police are being federalized for all intents and purposes with Homeland Security money. There is the manifest joke of the drug war, where you've had scores of congressional hearings, certifications by the CIA Inspector General in 1997 that, yes, the agency for decades did bring in every drug you can imagine. Constantly, government is caught shipping drugs in and doesn't get in trouble because it's sanctioned, shipping guns to drug gangs over the border. Police officers get killed, and there's not big parades and cities shut down. The people are told there'll be a couple folks out there at the funeral. Shut up if you want their pension. What is it? At least 3 police officers and now 3 Border Patrol? The number's more like 19, according to our sources, but they can't 100% prove. Because the Justice Department comes in and they'll debate, well, there was some guns from Fast and Furious with the people that killed the cop, but we think it's this gun that they got somewhere else. It's so sick. And then meanwhile, they shut the entire city down for 5 hours yesterday. I-35, 71, it was a living nightmare. Busiest thoroughfare in the country is I-35 in the swath from Austin to San Antonio. I mean, it's traffic at high noon. There's traffic there at midnight a lot of times. You know, bumper to bumper. Total shutdown. People couldn't get their kids for hours. And I heard the local talk show host and the police spokesman on the local radio attacking the public like we were scum and saying that you were told there was going to be this motorcade. Shut up. And it was just like the animosity. People didn't know coming down I-35 from all over the country why it was shut down for hours after hour. But it gets worse. San Angelo, where they took the poor police officer's body to be laid to rest, is northwest of Austin. They took the body south to parade him around and showboat. Okay, let me try to hit on a few of the other news stories that we've got here in front of us. And then I'm going to give the number out. In fact, I'll do that right now. And then I'm going to come back and cover from a psychology and criminology perspective what happened in Austin, Texas yesterday, where I live. And again, this affects people all over the country. This was a pure psyop on the back of a dead police officer. And it shows how the system manipulates. All these cops dead from Fast and Furious guns into the hands of criminals by the Justice Department. There's not parades for them. There's not shutting down cities for them. I went and looked it up. They kept it very quiet. The system uses officers that are killed to make the government look like heroes, just like they did with 9/11 first responders, who they then attacked in the New York Post as ambulance chasers wanting medical treatment. They wouldn't even get medical treatment. It took 9 years and an act of Congress to get them basic medical treatment. Hey, you're sick, you're off the fire department, and we're not going to give you treatment. Oh, yeah. The police, the firemen and women. Again, I'm sick of this fake sentimentalism where the system manipulates us. I mean, what I saw here in Austin yesterday was like something out of North Korea. And I'm not saying the people involved were bad. It just shows how they were manipulated. In fact, I know the feds were involved in organizing some of it, but guys, look into how this was orchestrated. Next time Arte Saveda comes in here, I mean, I challenge him, because I heard the radio yesterday. They were saying that he had called in and made statements that if people don't like the traffic, he doesn't care. And again, it just goes to disconnected from reality. And the way the public was then attacked by the talk show host and the callers going, I'll beat somebody up if I don't see them pull over. Folks, the media was saying pull over when they shut I-35 completely down. The busiest highway in the country and the busiest stretch. See, I'm already covering this. It's just so amazing. And I'm going to try to, in a focused way, cover it all after the break, because we got a bunch of graphics and documents I want to go over. They shut it down, and then they told everyone, the police department did, the news media echoed it, that to show respect, you should stop on the other side of the road. So the other side, both lanes, like there'd been a nuclear spill or something, were shut down, both northbound and southbound, and it shut the entire city down because people all went off the other roads. There were cars wrecking. My wife saw cars crashing into each other, people driving on the medians, bedlam. This is a big city with not enough roads because the environmentalists had blocked them. We're under Agenda 21 here completely. And it was insanity. People couldn't get their children. Yeah, look at that on the local news. Go back and show that and pause that real quick. Go back and show it. Where it shows them. Let's just do it after the break. Just stop, okay? Yeah, look, the other side of the highway shut down, quote, out of respect. And this went on for 5 hours in Austin. And then hours after hour. But here's the big one. Here's the big one. I was looking at it, I go, San Angelo's north of Austin. Why did they go south? And they did it to shut everything down on purpose to make a giant spectacle. And according to that thought process, get a parade permit, announce when you're going to do it on a weekend, so everybody who wants to come out and pay respects can, and shut down Congress and give the guy a parade if you want. Okay, fine. Gave his life. Whatever, great, I'm all for it. Do not, in the middle of the day and into the daytime traffic, shut everything down. And I'm going to show you the maps if you're watching on prisonplanet.tv and go all over. And people are like, hey, man, we got North Korea about to launch a missile. We got global depression. We'll get to all that. This, though, is about the mindset of government. And as a psyop, how the public responded. When they're told to be sentimental and care, they do. When they shoot a kid up with the vaccines and they die on the spot, nobody cares. Because the media is not told to care. We'll be back. I'm going to get into the Carmageddon thing and the different psychological angles on it coming up at the start of the next hour for just one segment. I'm going to try to keep it condensed down to just one area and go over the fact that ambulances couldn't get places, people couldn't pick their children up, in some cases for 2 hours plus. The major highway was completely shut down. There were no police to be seen anywhere writing the customary tickets and revenue generating, and I'm told that they couldn't really respond to a lot of calls, and it's just like, it doesn't matter. We're going to shut down everything, and we're going to route a vehicle completely out of the way and shut down both sides of the highways and turn the city into total gridlock. And then if you complain about it and say, why did you do this? We're going to say you're a traitor and hate police because you're just a scumbag citizen here to pay taxes. And helicopters and the police chief crying. I mean, I've never seen this. The last police officer was Officer Jones, who died back in 2000 when some scumbag shot him when he pulled him over. And it is a tough, thankless job. My whole point is that the system wants to lionize police to God level and try to set up an idea that they are rock star superheroes so that you cannot ever criticize them. So when the state gives them orders that are criminal and dangerous and try to use them for tyranny, the psyop is you can't say no. And so that is all coming up later in the transmission. What I'm going to do right now is just open the phones up on any subject you want to discuss. What's happening in the economy, the threats of North Korea to go to war if anybody gets in the way of their missile being launched, our corporate media criticizing North Korea and talking about how horrible the government is and how the people are starving. Well, I mean, you like total government. Our government does a lot of stuff like North Korea. And, of course, I can compare that. The public out crying, who didn't even know the police officer, and waving American flags. They're desperate for America to come back. They're desperate for something to believe in. And when the media says, have a race war over Trayvon Martin, it starts. People start getting killed. And when they say, you will, when you see this driving on the other side of the highway, you'll pull over out of respect as they shut down the other side of the highway. But then when a cop gets killed by the Justice Department's guns, or when the Justice Department kills Cop of the Year in Oklahoma because he knew the feds were planting bombs in the building, Terrence Yakey, and the head of the K-9 unit and others are witnesses to what the feds were doing, they come to him and say, we'll kill you and your family if you don't shut up. And then the cop, the police officers, it's 3 of them separately, go to the police chief. The police chief says, get out of my office. Better keep your mouth shut. Hey, chief, feds are threatening to kill me and my family if I talk about what I saw. Well, you better keep your mouth shut then, buddy. See, it's all fake. It's a psyop. That's my point. It's not about the police officer who was killed. It's about the fact that it's a giant psychological operation. And that it's getting more and more crazy when a police officer gets killed, where they act like the earth stands still. When they want to is the point. And the question is, why did they want to route it through the middle of the city in rush hour and shut the entire city down into total gridlock and bedlam? I mean, when Bill Clinton used to do that, or George Bush, people got mad, and rightfully so. What do you need 100 cars? Why are you blocking highways? You're not the emperor. You're not Kim Jong-il. This is North Korea stuff, man. They shut the highways down in dictatorships. The people hated Ceausescu in Romania because he did stuff like that. American presidents didn't used to do this. Unless the city decided to give the president a parade, then there was a parade route. Not just as the president lands for fundraisers, they shut down the highway. It happens, Obama's here 4 or 5 times a year. And I usually don't go home till 7 or 8 or 9 at night, but sometimes we'll run out to get something to eat. And we're right here by I-35 and 290, and the airport's over there. And they'll just have police blocking the exits and things and entrances, and we can't go anywhere. And they'll block the road, 20 minutes before. When his plane lands, and sometimes he'll sit there for an hour, they start blocking the road. And you're just like, oh, the road's blocked because the king is here. That's what I'm sick of. I really have a problem with that. And so now the local bureaucrats, let me tell you, if they get away with using this dead cop to do this, it's an exercise of power. It's a showboating. They're going to start doing it. They had a police dog killed a few years ago. I'm already covering this. They had a police dog killed in Houston, and on the news it said thousands of police on taxpayer money went there, and they had shut down a part of the roads for the dog and called in an officer and charged the guy with killing an officer under some weird twist of the law for shooting the dog. And I'm not saying that's good, and I'm a big dog lover. I've got 4 dogs, 2 French bulldogs, a black lab, and an aged chihuahua. Okay, I got 4 dogs. But let me tell you, this is what happens in Rome. In Rome, they begin to elevate the emperor's dogs and the emperor's bulls, their champion bulls, and their horses above the people. It always is the same. And this was all about worship police, but not individually. The state wears the police as a cloak of infallibility. It's just really weird. Most of the time when I run into police, if you're nice to them, then they start asking you questions and looking at you weird. So I just don't even really talk to them. I'm just like, okay. It was like they had 2 police came out because an alarm went off at my house. I don't know why it's been going off in the middle of the night. And I go up there to talk to them. And they both recognize who I am. I tell them who I am, tell them squirrels are eating the wires or something. And the male officer starts walking away, and the woman says, can I see your ID? And I could tell she was smiling at me. It was like an exercise of power. And I said, yeah. I pulled out my wallet out of my back pocket, and she looked at it and smiled at me. It was just a little, and I was like, whatever, man. If that's what makes your ego feel good, if that's what makes you feel good in life, is to have somebody show you their ID while they're wearing jeans and no shirt, standing in the dark, you're shining a flashlight in their face. I was just like, whatever. And my point is I think she did that because I said, thanks for coming out. Be safe, And she turned back around and said, let me see your ID. And it was like, okay. And I knew as soon as I said something nice to him, that was the trigger. I just know so much about psychology now and how people work, and I'm just sick of it, man. I'm so sick of it. And the banks that have captured this country are forging a oppressive, unconstitutional system. I mean, I don't blame, quote, all police for the fact that every 3 or 4 days I see articles where they're taking people's children at the hospital because they refuse vaccines. There's no law. It's not neglect. And they're kidnapping children. And they're following the orders of the pedophile services, the Child Pedophile Services, CPS, the Pedophile Delivery Service. And I know it's a crime, and I know they're hurting people's children, and it affects me. And I know they have special units attached, in many cases, to CPS and hospitals that are pervs and are part of the team. I was talking to a well-known musician, and he talked about how they groped his 14-year-old daughter, the TSA. Now they single out his wife because she's attractive. And I mean, you see people, and you see 14-year-old girls with pot-bellied men and women grabbing their breast. I mean, this is the sacrament. I guess you should wave an American flag and cry, oh, here's my 5-year-old daughter, grope them, and then you wave an American flag, and and it's like, if you don't like it, wave an American flag. They can start coating cyanide pills with a little American flag cover, on the pill. And it's like, take cyanide, and you're like, I don't want to die. And they're like, it has an American flag on it. You see how it's a gimmick. It's just totally shallow and fake and being done because it's fake. It'd be like if somebody brought you cookies when you moved into a neighborhood and came up and was real nice and gave you the cookies and told you how nice they were to bring you cookies. You'd go, oh, this neighbor, they're not bringing me cookies to be friendly. They want something. The next day, hey, mind if I leave my dog with you this weekend when I'm going out of town? And you're like, sure. And they get back, hey, mind if you pick me up from work? It's the gimmick of it. It's that it's a manipulation. It's that the public is looked at by the social engineers, and the local ones all want to play that game. It's all how to package info, how to manipulate, how to punch people's buttons. It's like a month or so ago, Santorum said something, about women and birth control, and Limbaugh came out and, talked about a woman who wanted thousands of dollars of contraceptive a year. And he's like, man, you want us to pay for what, for your sexual activity? I mean, what is that when you pay someone so they can have sexual activity? What is that called? And they made a huge deal, and Obama went up like 10+ points or more in some polls with women. Total con artist, reading off a teleprompter, lied about everything. But you know what? He's skinny and handsome and acts friendly and like a sitcom star. So it's like, hey, you know what? Go ahead and rape me real bad. You know what? It's a gimmick, and I'm sick of gimmicks. There's nobody putting makeup on me. There's nobody telling me what to say. This is real. And sure, I wear a sports jacket to respect the information. I was talking about a dead police officer today. I put a sports jacket on. There's little things like that. We try to make it, an interesting show. But the point is that that's not what's up front. That's not what our foundation is. And this is a culture that is 1,000 miles wide and 1 atom deep. You ever heard the saying, all hat and no cattle? Most people wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots and strutting around talking like John Wayne are like John Wayne. They're not from Texas. They're from Ohio. Nothing wrong with being from Ohio. Of course, John Wayne did embrace the Western culture and get all into it. The point is, I don't blame him, is that it's all hat and no cattle. You understand the difference between that? All hat and no cattle. Mile wide, inch deep. They're not real. People revel in the fakeness. And it's like you're an open, this is so important I'm going to say right now, it's like you're an open, programmable computer that just receives what you're told. So the media in a PSYOP test, this is what this was. I've never seen anything like this anywhere, with a police officer, a president, anything. I mean, this was crazy. And it was a PSYOP. Arte Saveda is slick. The Austin police chief. This was a PSYOP for a few days before to say, you will stop when you see it come by on the other side of the road. And we're going to shut down I-35. And we're going to shut down 290. And we're going to shut down 71. And we're going to go the opposite direction of the town northwest of Austin. And we're going to drive through the middle of Austin from North Austin. I mean, they were right there on the big toll road that goes right out to a big highway, straight shot directly to the town, 55, 60 miles away, San Angelo. And they went all the way down into South Austin and all the way down around South. I mean, the MapQuest and the Google Maps wouldn't program in that route. Normally you can do alternate routes. It will not take the programmed route. That's the route they took. I have it on screen. And that's just in Austin. When you back out, you can see the map there. And, of course, the statesman doesn't show the road that's right up there in North Austin and goes right out to San Angelo. And they did this to shut everything down because it's a psyop. They sat there, experts at traffic control, DPS command, as they're called, highway command, getting their Homeland Security armored mobile pillboxes for us because we're the enemy with our tax money, and gunboats with the giant machine gun arrays and to fight drug smugglers when the government's shipping the drugs in, to fight smugglers that didn't launder their money with them. They shut everything down as an exercise of power. And see, I know history. So I know that kings in China and Japan and in Mayan cultures and in British culture and in ancient French culture and Roman culture, they would shut roads, the Romans would, to mark the death of an emperor. Just everything stops. You're going to learn that we have the power. When I was in London last time taking a tour, so I was just using one of the open back buses to shoot some video, so I got the tour. And when I got back, I looked it up. It was true. Every week, every day, the Queen shuts down different parts of the city. And they say, today these streets are closed. She's exercising her divine right. And she owns the streets of London and is shutting down these major roads today. And she shuts down the river Thames sometimes to exercise the power. To show it's yours, that you don't have right of way. That's an ancient common law. And they let us know. They said, listen, you're going to pay respects. And you know what they did? Kids everywhere. Because you hear there's going to be a parade for an officer in the background. You're like, oh, well, that's nice. And then you're like, why is the whole city shut down? I've got to pick my child up at this sporting thing he's at 4. And instead it's 6. And your child is there in a field. And no one can get to them. And ambulances can't get there. And people can't get to police calls. And people driving on I-35 have no idea what's going on. And both sides are shut down. It's just like the attitude of the police chief, and everybody was like, literally, I heard this on the radio. I heard them talking about it, and it was like, get used to it. Get used to it. Tough luck. It wasn't like, yeah, we're sorry, but you know what? It's for a slain officer. And we understand it caused inconvenience. Thanks for bearing with us. It's just like, tough luck. Tough luck. And the IRS is going to take your house outside of due process, and they're going to burn your house down if they want it because you got chickens in the backyard, and they're going to arrest people for gardens, and they're going to arrest the Amish, and they're going to take our tax money and pay it to foreign banks, and we're going to go bankrupt, and they're going to have tax incentives to ship our jobs out of the country. All of this is going on. Here's the toll-free number, 800-259-9231. I'll just go to this at the bottom of the next hour. And I got a bunch of news, but I want to take your calls. 800-259-9231. More news coming up. Oh, we've got the North Korea footage? Yeah, that's the fake crying in North Korea. And basically, the media told everybody to come out and cry. And that's what happened. Tens of thousands, I think, because it was like hundreds at every overpass, were crying and waving American flags or waving Mexican flags. And it's just like, my wife said, it's very fascist. It's like, this isn't normal. It's not normal in North Korea. It's not normal here to take a route that shuts a whole city down and then yell at people if they're like, man, why are you doing this? And then act like we're weird because it's like everybody's waving American flags. Listen, we know we're in America. Do you understand that what the flag symbolizes has basically been killed? You're like, oh, that's extreme. You want to actually follow what the country's founded on and why we're supposed to honor the flag as the symbol. What the flag symbolizes is being killed. And you get all these stores order their employees out, like North Korea, to put their hands over their heart. Just a big spectacle. It's government worship. I mean, they took. Okay, I just can't handle it anymore. Oh my God, and just, I mean, they were so desperate to have a martyr. They now have big parades for dead dogs. And again, if you want to go to the parade, go to the parade. But no, they said, we're going to make you sit in traffic for hours and not get your children. And then we're going to scream at you on the radio. And everyone, like it's North Korea, is going to say, how dare you even question? You don't do that in America. You don't have Amish in America. You don't refuse vaccines. We'll take your kids with no law. That's what I mean, folks. They've now announced they're spying on everyone without warrants. Totally illegal, and they just want you to know they're spying on you without warrants. And I mean, they didn't have police parades like this before. That's what I mean. People are like, well, you ought to think this is a good thing. Really? Why is it new? Why do they do this now? Presidents didn't used to have 100-car motorcades and block off huge areas of cities every time they flew into town. Police didn't used to wear black masks. We didn't used to have checkpoints on our highways. We didn't used to have a government shipping guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. We didn't used to have 10,000+ % increase in pediatric cancers. We didn't used to, every public place I go to, there's mentally retarded and autistic and children being damaged by vaccines all around me, everywhere I go. Diabetes, 3,000% increase. We're a cursed nation. And the veneer of it is go out and cry when a cop drives by you don't even know. But when your neighbor's kid gets taken by the CPS for no reason, your neighbor comes for you for help, you're like, I'm sorry, I just can't help you. Mile wide, millimeter deep. All hat, no cattle, man, and I'm tired of it. It's disgusting. And all cultures that are tyrannies are hallmarked by this North Korea type stuff. In North Korea, I was looking it up. If they get somebody killed, they do the same thing for police. I mean, you know, welcome to North Korea of Austin. If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the InfoWars store at InfoWars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe InfoWars T-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at InfoWars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there. Wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at InfoWars.com today. The water filters, the canteens. It's all there. InfoWars.com. Their testament to genocidal hatred of humanity. They're going to be joining us in the third hour, which actually distracts them and away from their work. They're investigating the suspicious death. You know, they announced in about 5 minutes they think he blew himself up in the house. When they do that, we have to automatically not believe known congenital liars that are government. And, you know, that's my issue with the police. A lot of police I know are patriotic, smart men and women and are good people and got into it for the right reasons. But they work for and serve a corrupt political elite and carry out unconstitutional stuff all the time. And, yes, I will later in the hour break down Austin's own Carmageddon. You're like, well, I don't live in Austin. Why do I care? This type of stuff is going on everywhere. That police officer got killed last week by a Xanax head. They shut down both sides of the major highways and paralyzed the city for 5 hours. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. We are live. Thank you for joining us. It is the 12th day of April, 2012 on this Thursday worldwide broadcast, and we're going to be here for the next 3 hours. We're going to have our reporters, Marcos Morales and Darren McBreen, joining us from a suburb of Atlanta, Roswell, Georgia, where a man locked in a, 6-year battle with the city that was telling him he couldn't have his phone. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and thank you for joining us here on this Thursday edition, the 12th day of April, 2012. And as you can hear, my voice is a little bit raspy today, but I think it'll, like an old car's engine, after it runs for a while, it should stop sputtering and clanking and whiz-banging. We have reporters. In fact, guys, will you pull me yesterday's news, Paul Watson's article on the suspicious death of the gentleman who had a small farm that the city designated as a green space and decided to take. And so they kept bringing charges forward for a very long period of time against him. He kept winning in court, so the house just blew up, and with him in it when the police outside. And, of course, somebody also, months before, had poisoned his chickens. And it made the city even madder because it was out in a rural area. It's a suburb of Atlanta. They're in Georgia. They're in Roswell, Georgia. Others were getting into having backyard chickens. And you don't do that in America. Pittsburgh is moving to ban farm that they had annexed into the city. Ended up dying when the police began to raid his home. And they're telling us that the gentleman blew himself up. So we've got reporters there talking to the locals and investigating, and they'll be joining us coming up in the third hour of the broadcast today. Headline at Infowars.com, state seizes property under green zoning laws. They designated the land. They said they were going to get it. And they said, you can't have chickens. And he went to court and beat them. He'd had chickens for years, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter, and, of course, they've got the property now. Another citizen conquered. Agenda 21, eco-fascism bears its teeth, and it's broken down in that article. We'll cover that for about 30 minutes of the third hour today. Meanwhile, there's more hysteria. NBC New York reports suspicious package forces evacuation of World Financial Center Tower. The wicked flee when none pursue. Yesterday, we were reporting that, and so was Fox News and others, that there was leaks coming out that, no, they weren't going to charge George Zimmerman and the Trayvon Martin slaying. And then before the show was even over, they came out and said they were charging him with second-degree murder, which has shocked prosecutors across the country. They said, bare minimum, you might get a conviction with manslaughter, which is basically accidental. But second-degree murder is a big deal. I guess all there is after that is premeditated capital murder, which is the death penalty. Now, suddenly, Trayvon Martin's mother has come out and said that she thinks that it was an accident, and the leader of the new Black Panther Party, we're going to play this later, has broken down crying and freaking out. Turns out she's got a long history of run-ins with the police. She's now apologizing, saying she never incited anyone to violence, and then cries, it's about the worst performance I've ever seen. And I guess she's worried now about being arrested for racketeering, because they call on people to organize to murder whites and to, quote, burn down Florida. I mean, that's organizing criminal attacks. That is the essence of organized crime. And you notice she hasn't gotten in trouble, but I think the way she's crying and freaking out now and then saying, and by the way, I never incited anybody. I guess her lawyer told her that. That she's getting the word that she's going to get some handcuffs slapped on her, and she needs to. I mean, where is the grand jury? Where is the prosecutor calling for this Tampa, Florida woman to be arrested? I mean, anybody else. If this wasn't being run out of the White House and NBC hadn't been caught editing tapes so that they can get a race garage sales, and of course the feds have $15 million fines now if you sell anything that was ever recalled, even though you don't know that. You're supposed to know that. If you sell anything that was ever recalled, $15 million fine. That's Associated Press. If you think I'm joking, just search that term. I've got more attacks on Amish and more attacks on people selling produce on the side of the road. You're not going to do that. Pretty soon they won't even let a gentleman, I guess, at South Austin sell bonsai trees on the side of the road. You don't do that in land of the free, home of the brave. You pay your money to a big box store with Chinese slave goods, with factories that move to China because of tax incentives. And if you don't like it, you can go to jail in land of the free, home of the brave. I don't know why my voice is gone today, but it's one thing when my voice is raspy, but it's another thing entirely when it's hard to talk. So hopefully my afterburners will kick in here, and I don't feel bad. It's just laborious to talk. That's coming up. I'm going to have our reporters, Darren McBreen and Marcos Morales, reporting from Roswell, Georgia, home of Ted Turner and the Georgia Guidestones nearby.